So this is my second entry for my reflective practice journal. Within this reflection, I'll be focusing on barriers to motivation within physical education. Motivating pupils with little to no interest is of significant importance to me, as I was once one of those kids, and it was only for my Year 7 teachers' passion and determination to engage and motivate me to take part in physical education that I now have the opportunities, experiences and achievements I sit here with today. So to begin with, we were guided to observe Brookfield's 4 lenses of reflection. This discusses methods necessary to effectively critically reflect and the importance that critical reflection has to us as teachers and practitioners of education. What you see here is a condensed interpretation of some of the key points I took from Brookfield's 4 lenses. In the blue are the 4 main lenses identified by Brookfield. In the green, a possible outcome from that reflection, and in the red, an assumption I would have had prior to reflections of my teaching practice. As stated by Brookfield, assumptions are taken for granted beliefs about the world. Brookfield views critical reflection as the act of hunting these assumptions. To use an example, we'll go down the autobiographical strand. Autobiographical reflection is self-reflection based on one's own experience and can set the foundation for all critical reflection. Through this self-reflection, I uncovered what Brookfield would describe as a paradigmatic assumption. Valid facts of reality as I believe them to be true. Examined critically only when presented with considerable evidence disproving my beliefs. In this situation, it was the assumption that I've experienced success as a sports coach. Teaching will come naturally as a result, which upon self-reflection, peer discussion and mentor feedback, I now see was a reality I took for granted. The literature strand would also have an assumption, a paradigmatic assumption that I would have, but yet to be disproven in my view. Other assumptions discussed are prescriptive, what we feel ought to be, surfaced as we examine other teachers and educational processes. This could be found underneath my colleague strand. And the final assumption is casual, how the world works and how we feel it can be changed. Quite often predictive. So, for instance, underneath my student strand, having good relationships, that's me predicting that will lead to good pupil progress. The methods of reflection I feel I've utilized within this journal are autobiographical, student's eyes, and literature-based reflection. Colleague reflection is not featured as strongly for me within this piece, as this reflection is based on the observation of a colleague. I have divided the concept of motivation within this lesson into 4 segments, 2 influencers and 2 results. I have attempted to put them into a cyclical format, but the truth is that all of these factors link up in many different ways. The 2 influences and motivation I observed in this lesson were praise and success, and the 2 results were effort and behavior. Within the aspect of success, I noted that a lot of the success criteria in this lesson was based on a physical outcome or a targeted achievement. Notes like, if you complete this task X amount of times, you've done well, and instructions like that. While this motivated strong and able pupils to push themselves to succeed, it unfortunately had the opposite effect on others. I noted a clear disparity between the effort levels of pupils. There were a small number avoiding taking part in the exercises, remaining in a passive role within the exercise and showing little interest to participate. When questioned on their lack of desire to partake by myself, a lot of answers consisting of don't really like the sport, don't enjoy PE, wish I could just watch, occurred. I wanted to delve deeper into the answers to better understand them. After pushing my questioning and encouraging the people to really explore their feelings and reasonings for their lack of motivation, there was a trend apparent of pupils having a low opinion of their ability and therefore desire to take part. I'm not going to get it, it's being the success criteria of the lesson, so what's the point? Was a direct quote that I experienced from a pupil. Based on this observation and also reflection upon my own experience, I decided to delve into the literature to gain a better understanding of what promotes motivation within physical education, but also, more importantly, what damaged it. I was questioning to myself just why, in my experience, I found it easier to motivate my learners within a coaching context. This assumption of mine was confirmed by Chiladuri, who found subjects experience greater motivation from learners within a coaching context. After considering both the literature and my own reflection, I came to the belief that it's not very surprising that motivation within a coaching context is easier to come by. The learners are there voluntarily to learn and develop within a sport they have a previous interest in, as opposed to within a PE lesson being there from an educational obligation. Connecting this motivation to physical education, Savenbaum found that pupils in Norway who were involved in sports clubs outside of school displayed better motivations towards physical education. Although this study was conducted in Norway, I believe that this thought process is valid within the UK. Even within the lesson that I observed, I found that stronger, more motivated pupils were involved in clubs outside of school and the extracurricular teams within it. Although the papers highlighted what improved motivation of pupils in physical education, I still had to find a consistent message as to what was the main barrier I believe to damage motivation in physical education. I came across Kirk and Papaioanou's studies, one conducted within the UK and one in Greece, both exploring pupil motivation in physical education. Again, parallels were noted on damaging factors in motivation between the two countries being a self-perceived lack of ability. I would agree that self-perceived inability to perform a task seems to be the strongest deterrent for motivation in physical education. Within my own practice, I rarely saw cases where gender, socioeconomic background, maturation, or race concepts affecting motivation, and if they were outliers. But I have consistently noted that if a pupil feels like they cannot perform a task, they will not be willing to want to, or they will not be likely to want to. Even within a lesson observation, one of the main things stopping pupils participating was this "I can't do it, so why bother" mentality. After getting an idea of what added these negative levels of motivation, I researched concepts which could prevent or heal the pupil's lack of confidence within their ability. Wormeli explains how teaching needs to move away from the concept of what the teacher teaches to what the pupil is able to learn, and the need for differentiation. I've used differentiation within certain classes in my own practice, based subconsciously on what Wormeli describes. I found that through this process, the pupils gradually became more active and encouraged within the lesson. This was due to them being able to feel successful and see improvement within their activity, removing those negative self-perceptions and allowing the pupil and the teacher to see a progression in their learning. From this reflection, I have come to the belief that pupils who feel they are good at sport are likely to be motivated to engage in physical education, while pupils whose self-perception of ability is low will likely disengage and become uninterested in progressing within PE. Some pupils within my classes I am still attempting to reach and instill that confidence needed to motivate themselves and see real progression with. There are pupils, however, that I have been able to motivate and engage, and that has all been through the use of differentiation, also along with the use of positive praise and encouragement, which I've always felt are non-negotiable aspects of motivation self-efficacy within the pupils. Adding aspects of differentiation allowed these pupils, one in particular I'm reflecting on right now, to find success within multiple lessons, which saw their confidence and belief in their own ability grow, leading them to push themselves to attempt more challenging exercises and even compete with stronger pupils. Not only has this given them an opportunity to progress further within physical education, but has been massively satisfying for myself as a teacher to witness. I feel differentiation and motivation are closely linked within the context of PE. I agree with Kirk and Papaioanou, due to my own experience, that low confidence in one's ability will cause them to be uninterested within a subject, in an attempt to protect themselves from those negative feelings of failure. As teachers, I feel it is our responsibility to create an environment that motivates every child to succeed. I have used differentiation in my lessons, but overall my use of it has been inconsistent at best. In order to motivate all pupils to succeed in my lessons, I aim to differentiate exercises and teach based on what my pupils are individually capable of learning. Not just to motivate, but to allow the pupils an opportunity to find a love for physical education as my teacher bestowed upon me.